No. Hello, welcome. I'm Gabriel, and today I am doing the ReRead Book Tag. So, the thing about running a channel dedicated to books is that you either have to read a bunch of books every week in order to sustain it by posting book reviews, or you have to get creative and work around the fact that you don't actually read that much, and that's what I'm doing. This tag was created by the channel Scallydanding about books. I'll link their original video down in the description. And I was tagged to do this by Charlotte from CoynieReads. Her videos are fantastic, and I will link her down below as well. And I want to say thank you, Charlotte, because I could not for the life of me think of what video I wanted to film this week until I saw that you had tagged me. Without further ado, here is the ReRead Book Tag. I actually haven't planned out my answers yet. I'm seeing these all kind of for the first time. Question number 1. Where do you sit on the rereading scale from almost never to all the time? I'm going to say not often. But usually I'll reread like 3 or 4 books a year. See, this is something I'm really figuring out now, because for the longest time I was not reading really anything, and this year I'm just like on a roll, and so I'm rereading a ton more than I usually do, because usually I read nothing. So this year is a bit of an anomaly. I'll say I've been rereading 1 book every other month. I don't have like a schedule, but that's about where it's been falling this year. Question number 2 is, has that changed over your reading life? And yes, it has, because back in the day when I was reading like 4 or 5 books a week because I was in middle school and insane, I never reread anything. I constantly wanted to find the next book because I was just worried about missing out on things. And I still kind of have that. Like every time I am faced with the decision to reread a book or to try something new, I tend to pick the new thing just because I usually can't justify it to myself if I have like a really long TBR and then I'm just like, ooh, let's go back to this favorite. Question number 3 is, when do you reread? Immediately after finishing a book, or not until years later? Or when the mood strikes? And I'll say when the mood strikes / years later. I almost never return to a book immediately after I finished it, or even later that same year. Although I have read a bunch of really good books this year that honestly I want to reread like immediately. So although that's not something I have done in the past, it might be something that I start doing as I find more books that I love and want to experience over and over again. Question number 4 is, why do you reread books? And this year, the answer to that question would be to see if I still like them. Like earlier this year, I reread The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. 1, because I couldn't remember anything that happens in it, but 2, because I've always called it a favorite, but like I can't remember why I liked it or what I liked about it. So it was great to just re-experience that. And it was the same thing with I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. It's a favorite, but I haven't read it since I was 13, so I revisited it just to see if it holds up, and thank God it still does. Question number 5 is, how do you reread? Faster, slower, or just the best bits? And when I reread an entire book, I tend to read it a lot faster. I read I'll Give You the Sun in like 2 days. I read The Bell Jar in a couple days. And then last year when I reread Ari and Dante, that took me 1 day. So yes, when I revisit a book, usually I have set time aside to just devour it. I also love that little addition of just the best bits, because if we count like just reading little sections of favorite books, I do that all the time. I have read like sections of this like 30,000 times. There are just favorite chapters in here that I go to. So if we're just counting like revisiting favorite little snippets of a book, I go back to this one a ton, and then I have a book of Toni Morrison's speeches and essays that I revisit all the time just to read little sections. And then I go back to poetry books a lot. If there's a poem that I want to read again, I'll go back and do that. And then sometimes I will go back and reread a favorite scene from a book. So I guess, yeah, if that counts as like rereading, I do that all the time. I just don't dedicate a ton of time to sit down and read it cover to cover, unless I've built it into my schedule and I was like, this week I am going to reread this book. I just want to add, I have somehow managed to mention Toni Morrison in every single video so far on this channel, and that is quite an accomplishment. I hope that I can continue to find ways to just shoehorn her into any video, no matter what the topic is. Question number 6 is, who or what do you reread? Which authors, genres, or individual books? And the books that I reread the most are the ones that I loved in like middle school. So Aria and Dante, I've reread like 3 times. I'll Give You the Sun, I just recently went back to. So I guess YA contemporary is what I have reread the most of in my life. But there are also certain classics which I've read for school and then reread again afterwards. I've done that with Fahrenheit 451. And then there is a certain middle grade fantasy series about wizards, which shall not be named, which I have read a few times. Moving on. Question number 7 is there a book that you found better when you reread it? My answer to that is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Sáenz. The first time I read it, I was like, this is good, this is pretty good. And then I put it on a shelf and I forgot about it for a couple of years, and then last summer, I picked it back up just to like reread the first chapter, and then I read the next chapter, and then I had read the entire book that day. And then after I finished it, I started it all over again because it is beautiful, and I don't know how it didn't like take over my life the first time I read it, but it definitely lives in my head rent-free. Question number 8, is there a book that you found was worse when you reread it? Oh, earlier this year I sat down and I wanted to revisit an old favorite that was The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. So I didn't find it worse, but I wasn't enjoying it, and so I stopped like 50 pages in because I didn't want to read the entire thing and end up not liking it. So that might just have to live in my memories from now on because I don't want to risk rereading it and like not liking it. Question number 9 is, which one book have you reread the most times? And the answer to that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I have read the physical book twice on my own, and then this past year I convinced my AP Lit class to read it, so that was the 3rd time. And then I also own the audiobook, and I will just listen to sections of that whenever I need to like calm down, because the writing is just so gorgeous, and hearing it read aloud is just like... So I would say I've read Picture of Dorian Gray probably 5 times. And that is the final question. I'm sorry this video is like really short, but I'm glad that I could get something uploaded this week. I still have my The Little Friend by Donna Tartt reading vlog coming someday when I can convince myself to finish it. I would like to tag Dasha from MythicPages, and I would like to tag Kelsey from I Read Today, as well as anyone else who thinks this tag looks fun and wants to do it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and boost my analytics. See you guys next time.